Terry McGinnis' first comic appearance happened in Batman Beyond Limited number 1. There are at least 5 different variations of this book. Do you know which one you have? If not, listen to find out. Hey there, comic fam, welcome back to Climbing Comics. In today's sesh, we'll be going over the first appearance of Terry McGinnis, aka Batman Beyond. I'm a 90s kid, so the 90s cartoon of Batman Beyond really resonates with me right now. I just remember the intro scene. I found out that the cartoon came out in January of 1999, and its first comic book came out a couple months later in March of 1999. There are at least 5 different versions of this book. So if you have one of these books, check out for these variations. To start us off, in March of 1999, 2 of these versions came out. So both the direct edition as well as the newsstand edition. What you could look for here is on the bottom left-hand corner is if you see that barcode there. If it either says direct, that's direct edition. If it has no listing at all and it just has a barcode, that is the newsstand edition. How you also identify these books are in the back you'll see an advertisement of Pop-Tarts. So the third variation of this book came out in June of 1999, where it was a promotional free comic. What you'll see here is at the bottom left, there's this white blank space for comic book shops and owners to be able to stamp their own logo on there. Another way to tell that this is that book that came out in June 1999 is in the back you'll see a Jell-O advertisement. The fourth variation of this book is the Six Flags promotional version. What you'll see here is on the bottom left, you'll see in that white blank space that you'll see compliments of Six Flags on there. And in the back, you'll see a advertisement for PlayStation. And lastly, the fifth variation of this book came out in July 2000. So this is considered the third printing of the promotional edition of this book. What you'll notice in this book is that there's no box on the bottom left-hand corner of that cover with either barcodes, promotions, or blank space. It'll be the straight cover and it'll have the illustration in that space. What's different about this book is in the back, you'll see a Batman Beyond Return of the Joker DVD promo. So these are the 5 different variations of this book. So check which one you have and let me know in the comment section below. If you have one or if you're looking for one, which one would you look for? In the cartoon, the team of creators, writers, artists, Bruce Timm, Paul Dini, Alan Burnett, center their futuristic story around Terry McGinnis, aka Batman Beyond, who takes up the mantle of Batman under the guidance of an older Bruce Wayne. The comic has very similar art and writing style as the cartoon itself. The first comic book appearance of Terry McGinnis was in Batman Beyond Limited number 1, coming out in March of 1999 by writer Hilary J. Bader and artist Rick Burchett. Without further ado, let's get into it. Not on my watch. The story starts off with Batman, his fists up in the air. He seems to have some sort of mechanism that's glowing. The next scene, he smashes a crane just with one single punch. A couple of the bad guys are like, this is Batman, but he's as strong as Superman. That thing that he has in his hand must have some limits. As 2 of the bad guys say this, the third bad guy runs away, saying he's not sticking around to find out. Batman smashes a couple things at the door. All of the 3 bad guys stop right there, and they essentially say, all right, we give up. Imagine what if Batman had ever made a whole suit out of that stuff that his fist is holding. Commissioner Gordon comes up and says, we've been looking for these guys for the last couple months. I'm just glad they're off the streets. They're off the streets. This guy comes in really angry, saying that his new weapon was going to put him in front of the competition. I'm glad you stopped them from stealing my inventory, but you let them destroy almost everything. The insurance company won't even cover the real value of what we've destroyed here. What do you have to say for this, Batman? Batman, face to face, nose to nose, says, I don't like guns. Many years later, you see a blurb saying that billionaire Bruce Wayne has averted an attempted takeover of his company by Derek Powers of Powers Technology. This scene is very similar to the very first episode of the cartoon, where there's this woman tied up in the background. These 2 bad guys have gotten their ransom money. Batman comes in with his batarang and smashes the gun out of one of the bad guy's hands. As he's making sure that the girl is okay, she's trying to murmur something to him, and he's like gasping because he seems tired. This guy behind him smashes Batman on the back of the head with this huge wrench. As Batman tries to scour away, he picks up this gun and points it at the bad guy. He's like, "No, don't." The guy's running away. Batman's like, "No, no, no." He looks at the gun. He never likes working with guns. The next scene, you see Batman back in his Batcave, putting away his suit, saying never again. 20 years later, you see this futuristic type city. There's still these guys named the Jokers with a Jokerz at the end of it, trying to cause a ruckus around the city, stealing purses, fighting people, just general mischief. This one guy comes in, punches one of the Jokers in the face, and he calls him a clown. He starts running away, and he gives this woman back her purse. She says, "I'm sure your father must be proud of you, Mr. Terry McGinnis. But I wouldn't know. My dad and I don't exactly talk that much anymore." The next scene, you see this guy Warren researching something. This other guy calls him, his friend Harry, and he's like, "Could you meet me at the landing?" They meet at the landing, and Harry gives his friend Warren this small disc, and he's like, "If anything were to happen to me." Before he could finish his sentence, this guy, very ominous looking, appears in the background and says, "You're late with your meeting with Mr. Powers." You could see Harry has some sort of splotching on his hands and his whole body. These guardsmen essentially incapacitate Harry, but it somehow looks like they just stabbed him in the neck. It's really random. His friend Warren is asking what's wrong with him. The bad, ominous looking guy says, "I'm afraid you'll have to discuss this with Mr. Powers." Mr. Powers is just explaining to Warren that Harry simply suffered from an allergic reaction to the chemical compound in the lab. He should be fine in a couple days, and he could see him on Monday. Cutscene, and you see a reflection on Mr. McGinnis's eyeglasses. And he's like, "Powers can't be serious. He must be out of his mind to think." Terry walks in and he's like, "I'm gonna go out." His father's like, "You're grounded, remember? You started that fight. If you don't control your temper, how can you expect to go anywhere in life?" Terry, without thinking, says, "Yeah, I'll be a big success just like you," sarcastically. His father looks down and says, "Terry." The next scene, Terry's running out, goes to this club to meet his girlfriend, and these Jokers come up, start harassing them all. Terry, of course, jumps in, starts to fight them, and jumps on one of their motorcycles. As he's screeching away, the Jokers follow him. He's going down out of the city into this wooden area and finally into an area where he calls it the Spook House. He's losing them, but in the middle of the street, he sees this old man, and screeching out of the way, he falls off the bike. The Jokers catch up to him, and they're about to fight him. But you see this big, ominous looking guy in the background saying, "You're trespassing." Terry stands in front of this old man and says, "I can take care of this." The Jokers start fighting them, but the old man, out of the shadows, you see his face. It's basically old man Bruce Wayne. Punches one of the Jokers in the neck, uses his cane, starts fighting them. Terry is tag teaming with them and fighting some of the other Jokers, and they all flee. In the end, you see Bruce wheezing, asking for his medicine. And he's like, "What?" So Terry starts to bring him into his house. This really angry dog comes up, but Bruce is like, "It's okay, Ace. He's okay." As they're inside the house, Terry brings Bruce his pills. He drinks them, and just like that, Bruce is out of it. He's asleep. Terry realizes that he should just call his dad to come pick him up. As he's making a call, he sees this clock in the background, and there's this bat stuck inside of it. It's really random. So he says there's got to be a way to open this, and he pushes it open. Behind this clock, you see this huge bat cave right behind him. You see the Batmobile, you see Batman's computer. Unfortunately, you don't see the dinosaur here, but that's all fine. Bruce comes up, smacks him behind the head and says, "Get out." Terry's like, "All right, I'm going." By the time he reaches home, his mom is in front of his house with the cops, and she's so glad he's okay. He asks what's happened, and a robbery happened, and the police say it was the Jokers, and they surprise his father. As Terry says, "Where's Dad? Where is he?" His mother looks down. Terry realizes and runs towards the house. The bottom blurb says, Warren McGinnis leaves behind 2 sons. Among the mourners was McGinnis's employer, Derek Powers. The next scene, you see the TV on, talking about Warren McGinnis. His mother turns it off. He's looking at a picture of his father himself, realizing how much of a jerk he was to his father the last time they talked. His brother smirks in the background, saying, "You said it." His mother's like, "That's enough, Maddie. Leave your brother alone. He's been through a lot." As Terry is holding his picture with his father, he sees this tiny little disc from the bottom pop out. He's like, "What is this?" And titled on it is, "In the event of my death or disappearance, ... He puts it in his computer. His brother stands up behind him. "What you got?" Terry's like, "Something Dad was looking at." He's like, "Doubly whoa. I gotta show this to him." His brother Maddie's like, "Where are you going?" Terry's like, "Out." Next scene, you see Terry's girlfriend dropping him off in front of gates that say W in front of it. She's like, "I can't leave you here." He's like, "Sure you can. I just need to see this guy." She asks him about what? He says, "I'll explain later, but you better go before the storm hits." Terry keeps pushing the doorbell, trying to get Bruce Wayne's attention, saying, "Come on, you know you're in there. Listen to me." He holds up the disc and he says, "Something stinks in your company. I think it cost my old man his life." And the answer's on this. He says he'd like to take it to the cops, but he knows that both Bruce and Powers are both cozy with the cops. How about you take a look? As he walks away, he's like, "Yeah, I should have known you wouldn't care. You're no Batman. You're a whacked out old fraud." As he's starting to walk away, you hear a click and a creak. The door opens. As he walks through the gates, Ace the dog walks up and starts growling at him. He says, "Back off, Scooby. It's me. ... To be continued." That was a pretty cool first appearance of Terry McGinnis, aka Batman Beyond, and giving some backstory of his mentor, Old Man Bruce Wayne. I was lucky enough to get the physical book of this guy. This one is the Six Flags promotional version. I compared it to the DC Universe Infinite app. It seems like the first issue in the app only goes over half of this book. So I believe that the first 2 issues digitally equate to 1 physical book. This was kind of an interesting thing I found out. I'll probably page through it and show the video here. The cool story behind this is that I obtained this book in 2019 where I attended the Berkeley Comic Show. This was a very small show where it's only really about comic books. I was able to meet Eric Larson, had him sign like a couple of my books, one of them being the Tri-Sentinel Spider-Man book. But it was fun going through the books there, finding books like this in, like at that time, seemed to be pretty good prices. And also shout out to Asian Funk Comics. I think he attended that same show. Unfortunately, we didn't meet and coincide. This is when I was just starting to get into YouTube comic shows, and probably after that did I more so start watching his show. I definitely recommend to watch a lot of his content. He has a lot of great interviews and it's just entertaining in general. So question for you, do you have this book or are you trying to obtain this book? If so, which version? Do you care which version? Which version do you have? Which one means more to you? I think this one means more to me because I found it while I was hunting for books at a local comic show. So if you like this video, please consider giving me that thumbs up, subscribing, and clicking that bell icon so you're notified of when I come out with new content. From my comic journey to yours, make it your own. Thanks all. Bye.